exists within the vast and intricate corpus of Neville Goddard's teachings, a principle so profoundly counterintuitive, so fundamentally paradoxical in its operation, that it unsettles the very foundation upon which most sincere students of manifestation have meticulously constructed their practice. We are instructed from our earliest and most formative encounters with the law of assumption to desire to cultivate the feeling of the wish fulfilled, to dwell persistently in the state of the answered prayer, to assume with unwavering conviction the sensation of our objective already realized in the three-dimensional world. And yet, embedded within Neville's most penetrating and philosophically sophisticated lectures, there emerges a technique, a method, a gateway of consciousness that appears, at first glance, to directly contradict this very directive. It is an approach that operates not through the intensification of desire, not through the amplification of wanting, but rather through its conscious, deliberate, and surgical release. This is what I have come, through years of study and practical application, to identify as the NOTT paradoxical portal to manifestation that functions by severing the energetic cords of attachment, those invisible threads that bind our consciousness to states of perpetual lack and separation. It is a method that asks us to do the unthinkable, to release our grip upon the very thing we believe we cannot live without, to declare our independence from external conditions, and in that declaration to discover a power we never knew we possessed. This technique does not deny desire itself. Rather, it transmutes the frequency of desire from desperate grasping to sovereign assumption, from the confession of absence to the quiet certainty of possession. Let us begin this exploration by acknowledging a fundamental metaphysical truth that Neville returned to again and again throughout his decades of teaching, a principle he considered the bedrock of all manifestation. Consciousness is the only reality, not consciousness of something external to itself, not awareness directed toward objects in space and time, but consciousness itself, pure, undifferentiated awareness. The ground of all being, the luminous substrate from which all phenomena, all experiences, all worlds emerge and into which they ultimately dissolve. When we utter those two sacred words, I am, we are not merely identifying ourselves with a particular body, a given name, a set of biographical circumstances, or a collection of memories. We are invoking, whether we realize it or not, the supreme creative power that fashions galaxies and orchestrates the dance of electrons, the power that mystics have called God, that philosophers have termed the absolute, and that Neville simply recognized as human imagination. And it is precisely here, in the subtle mechanics of the I am, in the operation of consciousness as it defines itself through assumption, that the NOTT technique reveals its profound utility and its startling effectiveness. For what we resist, what we push against with psychological force, what we declare ourselves to be not, this very negation, this very denial, creates a shadow definition of our identity, and consciousness, being infinitely literal in its creative operation, being incapable of irony or metaphor, must express in external form both the assertion we make and its implicit opposite. When you declare, I am not poor, Consciousness hears and registers the word poor as a state you are identifying with, even through negation. When you affirm, "I am not alone," the image of aloneness is impressed upon the subconscious mind. This is the tragic error most people make in their attempts to reshape their reality. They fight against what they do not want with such vigor that they energize and perpetuate the very condition they seek to escape. Consider now, with careful and sustained attention, the psychological architecture of human wanting, the structure of desire as it operates in ordinary consciousness. When we desire something intensely, whether it be a romantic relationship, a specific sum of money, a condition of physical health, professional recognition, or any other objective, we are, in that very moment of desiring, in that very instant of wanting, affirming and confessing its absence from our present experience. The phenomenological quality of wanting is, by its very nature, by its essential definition, a confession of lack. To want is to acknowledge, to admit, to declare that you do not presently have. And if consciousness is indeed the only reality, if our inner states are the true cause and external circumstances merely the effect, then the psychological state of wanting must perpetuate itself, must reproduce in your outer world of experience the very condition of absence, of separation, of incompleteness that it embodies within your consciousness. This is the great trap, the fundamental error of conventional manifestation teachings that flood the marketplace of spiritual ideas. They instruct you, often with great enthusiasm and motivational fervor, to desire more intensely, to visualize more vividly, to feel your wishes more powerfully, to want with greater emotional fervor and concentrated focus, all the while cementing, through that very act of wanting, through that very posture of desire as lack, the state of separation from your objective. They tell you to think about what you want constantly, to create vision boards, to repeat affirmations 1,000 times daily, to work yourself into emotional frenzies of wanting, and then they express puzzlement when your manifestations fail to materialize, or worse, when the opposite of what you desire appears with maddening consistency. They have failed to understand what Neville understood with crystalline, unshakable clarity, that the energy of wanting and the energy of having are fundamentally, irreconcilably different frequencies of consciousness. Neville Goddard understood the mechanism of manifestation with a depth and precision that few spiritual teachers have ever achieved. In his profound lecture entitled "The Pruning Shears of Revision," as well as in numerous other talks throughout his teaching career, he spoke with great emphasis about how we must become strategically indifferent to the outer world of appearances. He meticulously detailed how we must systematically cease to react emotionally to present circumstances, how we must deliberately withdraw our attention, our belief, our sense of reality from what merely appears to be, and redirect it entirely, completely, absolutely, to what we inwardly wish to experience. But we must be exceedingly careful here to understand what Neville meant by indifference, for it is not apathy. It is not the cold, emotional withdrawal of someone who has surrendered to despair, nor is it the resigned detachment of someone who has given up on life and retreated into cynical isolation. True indifference, in the Nevillian sense, is something far more sophisticated, far more powerful. It is the warm, radiant confidence of someone who knows with absolute certainty, who has assumed so completely and so naturally the reality of their wish fulfilled, that the external world's temporary contradictions, its apparent denials, its seeming impossibilities, no longer possess the power to disturb, to discourage, or to derail them from their assumption. It is the unshakable inner knowing of a woman who, having discovered she is pregnant, continues about her daily activities with perfect calm, even though her body shows no outward signs. She knows what is true, regardless of present appearances. It is the quiet certainty of an artist who has completed a masterpiece in their mind and now simply allows their hands to transfer that inner vision onto canvas with patient inevitability. This state of consciousness, this quality of serene, unshakable knowing is where the NOTT technique enters our practice as a surgical instrument. It functions as a precise tool for severing the entangled threads of attachment that bind our sense of identity, our emotional well-being, our feeling of completeness to external conditions, to other people's behaviors, to circumstances in the three-dimensional world. The technique recognizes that most of us have become psychological prisoners, held captive not by external chains, but by internal dependencies. We have conditioned ourselves to believe that our peace depends on this, our happiness depends on that, our sense of worth depends on something else entirely. We have externalized our power, projected our completeness onto objects and people and situations, and then spent our lives in anxious pursuit of these external saviors. The technique itself, in its practical application, is deceptively simple in structure, yet its successful execution requires a quality of consciousness, a level of self-awareness, an inner authority that most practitioners have not yet systematically cultivated in their spiritual practice. It operates in three distinct movements, three progressive phases, each building organically upon the last, each requiring absolute fidelity to the fundamental principle of assumption that Neville taught. These three movements form a complete cycle of transformation, taking consciousness from bondage to freedom, from grasping to receiving, from the exhausting effort of wanting to the effortless grace of being. The first movement, the essential foundation upon which everything else rests, is the unflinching identification of attachment. You must become conscious painfully, uncomfortably, sometimes even distressingly conscious of precisely where your attention is bound, of what thoughts circle endlessly through your mind, like vultures circling a corpse, in the desert of what emotional buttons can be pushed by external events to instantly destroy your peace. This requires brutal honesty, the kind of self-examination that most people carefully avoid because it threatens the comfortable stories they tell themselves about who they are and what they need. Is it money that holds you in bondage? Then notice, with the detached curiosity of a scientist observing a specimen, how many times per day you calculate your finances, how often you worry about future expenses, how frequently you check your bank accounts with that characteristic mixture of hope and dread, how you feel that familiar constriction in your chest, that tightening in your solar plexus when bills arrive in the mail, or unexpected expenses arise? Is it a specific person whose attention you crave? Then observe, without judgment, but with absolute clarity, how your emotional state rises and falls in direct proportion to their attention or neglect. Notice how your entire day becomes colored, tinted, saturated by their presence or absence. How your sense of self, your feeling of being lovable and worthy, has become dangerously entangled with their validation, their approval, their reciprocation of your feelings. Is it a health condition that dominates your consciousness? Then notice how many times per hour you check for symptoms, how you mentally rehearse worst-case scenarios, how you've built an entire identity around being the sick one, how you've allowed a temporary physical condition to define your eternal spiritual nature. This observation, this witnessing, must be ruthlessly honest, but tanned. This is crucially are not engaging in self-criticism here, not adding another layer of guilt and shame to an already burdened consciousness. You are simply becoming aware, perhaps for the first time, of the mechanical nature of your consciousness, the way it has been unconsciously programmed, conditioned through repetition and emotional reinforcement to seek externally, to lack perpetually, to yearn chronically for completion from outside yourself. Neville spoke often of the automatism of human consciousness, the way the vast majority of people move through life in a kind of waking sleep, reacting mechanically to circumstances rather than consciously creating them, responding to external stimuli like sophisticated biological machines, rather than commanding their experience as the gods they truly are. The first movement of the NOTT technique is nothing less than the awakening from this automatism. It is that pivotal moment when you see, with perfect clarity, with shocking recognition, that your desire is not drawing your good to you through some magnetic law of attraction, but is in fact functioning as a repellent force. It pushes away the very thing you seek through the frequency of lack that desire as wanting broadcasts into the quantum field of infinite possibilities. Welcome to a concept that might just flip everything you thought you knew about manifestation on its head. Today, we're diving deep into Neville Goddard's NOTT technique, a profoundly paradoxical method designed to unlock your desires by paradoxically releasing them. Prepare to enter a territory that, at first glance, appears to violate every principle of manifestation you've been taught, every rule absorbed from books, teachers, and countless YouTube videos about the law of attraction. This isn't about wishing harder or visualizing more vividly. It's about a surgical negation, a conscious, deliberate, and authoritative declaration that cuts through the very fabric of your attachment. At the heart of this technique lies what we call the surgical negation. This isn't a simple act of denial. It's the most counterintuitive and arguably the most powerful element of the entire process. Having identified with surgical precision the specific object of your attachment, that particular condition, person, or circumstance to which your sense of completeness has become bound, you now declare, with the full authority of your I Am, with the sovereign power of consciousness itself, that you absolutely do not want it. You state clearly, firmly, and without ambivalence, I do not need this. I do not require this. I am complete without this. But pause here, for this point cannot be emphasized strongly enough. This is not a lie told to yourself in desperation. This is not a form of self-deception, nor is it a childish game of reverse psychology played with what you imagine to be a capricious universe that might be tricked into giving you what you want if you merely pretend not to want it. That approach, that particular consciousness, would be coming from the same place of manipulation and lack, merely dressed in different clothing. No, what we are describing here is something far more profound, far more metaphysically sophisticated. This is consciousness performing surgery upon itself. You are, in essence, severing, with the precision of a neurosurgeon's scalpel, the energetic cord, the psychic umbilical connection that has bound your sense of self, your identity, and your emotional equilibrium to an external condition. When Neville Goddard taught the profound principle that everyone is you pushed out, he was not merely offering a pleasant platitude or an interesting philosophical perspective to contemplate during meditation. He was, in fact, revealing the fundamental mechanics of consciousness, the very way reality is actually structured. Your external world, in all its perceived complexity and apparent solidity, is nothing less than a perfect mirror, an exact reflection of your internal states of consciousness. We are not talking about your conscious wishes here, nor your stated intentions, nor the meticulously curated vision boards, nor even your daily affirmations. We are talking about your actual states, the consciousness you predominantly occupy, the deep feeling tone that characterizes your general approach to life. If you are genuinely in a state of needing love, of feeling intrinsically incomplete without a romantic partnership, of believing yourself to be fundamentally unlovable without external validation, then the world must, by its very nature, reflect this state back to you. It will manifest in the form of people who withhold affection, relationships that inevitably disappoint, and circumstances that consistently confirm your deep-seated sense of lack. Consider this: if you are authentically in a state of needing money, of feeling perpetually anxious about financial security, of believing that your fundamental peace depends entirely on a certain bank balance, then circumstances must arise, must manifest with mathematical precision to perpetuate scarcity. They will maintain the very conditions that keep you locked in that state of need. This is not punishment, nor is it karma in some simplistic, moralistic sense. This is not the universe being cruel or actively testing you. It is simply consciousness being faithful to itself, reality conforming perfectly to the shape of your awareness. Like a mirror reflecting with absolute accuracy the face that gazes into it. The NOTT statement, when properly understood and executed, becomes a powerful declaration of independence from this tyranny of externals, this relentless bondage to circumstances, this self-imposed prison of psychological dependency. You might, for instance, declare with calm and unwavering authority, "I do not need this relationship to feel complete. My completeness is not determined by another person's presence or absence in my life. Or perhaps I do not require this money to feel secure. My security is rooted in consciousness itself, in my identity as the creative power, not in the fluctuating symbols in a bank account." And with equal conviction, I do not demand this recognition, this promotion, this external validation to know my worth. My worth is inherent, eternal, unconditionally, existed before this situation arose, and will exist long after it has passed. And as you speak these words, and this is absolutely critical, not from a place of bitter renunciation, not with the sour energy of grapes you couldn't reach, nor with defensive self-protection, but from a place of genuine sovereign authority, from the very throne of consciousness itself, something extraordinary, something that can only be known through direct, visceral experience, begins to occur within the landscape of your inner world. The tension, that familiar knot in your stomach, releases like a clenched fist, slowly, deliberately opening. The grasping, the desperate cling, relaxes like a drowning person who suddenly, miraculously, remembers they can swim. The desperate quality of need itself transforms into something else entirely, into spaciousness, into an undeniable sense of freedom, into a kind of emotional and psychological breathing room that you may not have experienced in years, perhaps even in your entire adult life. And in that spaciousness, in that sudden, blessed absence of strain and struggle, in that gaping gap created by release, you discover something truly miraculous. You discover something that was always present, but was completely obscured by the thick, choking fog of your relentless wanting, the profound feeling of already being what you sought to become through the acquisition of the external thing. You discover that the state you were chasing, the happiness, the security, the love, was never actually absent. It was simply hidden behind the impenetrable wall of desire, concealed by the very seeking that promised to reveal it. This technique is not a trick. It is a profound insight into the nature of reality and your place within it. By consciously detaching your sense of self-worth and completeness from external conditions, you move from a state of conditional dependence to one of unconditional sovereignty. The NOTT technique, therefore, isn't about denying your desires, but about recognizing that the true fulfillment you seek is an internal state, not an external acquisition. It's about realizing you already possess the state of being that you thought the external thing would grant you. This understanding shifts your relationship with your desires entirely, transforming them from demanding masters into reflections of an inner abundance already present. Embrace this paradoxical path and witness the profound shift in your inner and outer world. This revelation brings us organically to the third movement of the technique, which Neville consistently called living in the end, but which the NOTT technique approaches from an unexpected angle, from a direction that most students have never considered. Having released, through conscious negation, your attachment to the specific form of your desire, having severed the energetic cord that bound your emotional state to external circumstances, you now assume this is the crucial transition. You now assume the state, the quality of consciousness, the feeling tone that you believed the manifestation would confer upon you. This is the master key that unlocks everything. If you wanted money because you believed it would give you security, you now assume, you now embody, you now live from the feeling of perfect, unshakable security without making any reference whatsoever to money. You feel secure, not because your bank account has a certain number in it, but because you recognize yourself as consciousness, as the creative power that fashioned the entire universe of your experience, including all financial circumstances. You feel secure because you know that the source of supply is not external, it is your own wonderful human imagination. Your I am, which can never be exhausted, never be depleted, never be subject to economic conditions or market fluctuations. This profound shift in perspective transforms your relationship with abundance, relocating its source from the precariousness of the external world to the inexhaustible wellspring within your own being. It is an act of sovereign declaration, affirming that your security is intrinsic, not contingent. If you wanted a romantic relationship because you believed it would give you love, you now assume the feeling of being loved, of being lovable, of being love itself, with no thought of, no reference to, no dependency upon any particular person. You recognize that love is not something another person gives you. It is what you are, the very substance of consciousness itself. You are not seeking love. You are the source from which all experiences of love flow. This is the great secret, the pearl of great price that most seekers never discover. The thing you wanted was never actually the thing itself, but always, without exception, the state you believed the external thing would confer, and states, those conditions of consciousness that Neville spoke of so often, are not achieved through acquisition, not attained through external circumstances. They are assumed through an act of imagination, through a deliberate choice of consciousness, through the exercise of your divine birthright as a creative being. This is a radical reorientation, moving from an external search to an internal realization. Let us examine this principle through the biographical lens of Neville's own life. For his existence was not merely theoretical speculation, but a living testament to these metaphysical truths he taught. When he desired to return to Barbados during the Second World War, an objective that was, according to all rational assessment and official policy, a complete impossibility for someone in his circumstances, he did not spend his days obsessing over ship schedules and visa applications, did not exhaust himself making phone calls and pulling strings and trying to manipulate circumstances through ordinary means. He did not hold the desire with white-knuckled intensity, did not visualize desperately, did not affirm anxiously. His approach was one of profound inner conviction rather than outward struggle. Instead, he did something that appeared completely impractical, even absurd to ordinary consciousness. He entered into and occupied the state of already being in Barbados. He performed night after night with disciplined consistency the imaginal act of being in his mother's house in Barbados, feeling the tropical trade winds on his skin, hearing her voice welcoming him home, experiencing with all the sensory vividness he could summon the reality of being where he desired to be. This immersive internal experience was not a fleeting daydream, but a sustained, purposeful occupation of a desired state of consciousness. He allowed himself to feel the joy, the peace, and the familiarity of his homeland, as if it were an present reality rather than a distant dream. And then, This detail is absolutely crucial to understanding how manifestation actually works. He went about his days with a kind of sublime indifference to whether or not the external circumstances would conform to his assumption. He had done his inner work. He trusted the law. He rested in the Sabbath of consciousness. This sublime indifference is not apathy, but rather a profound trust in the creative power of his own assumption. It signifies a release from the need to control the how and when of the manifestation, recognizing that once the inner state is secured, the outer reality must inevitably conform. This rest is a powerful act of faith, allowing the universe to orchestrate the necessary events without interference or anxiety. The manifestation came not through his wanting, not through his anxiety, not through his manipulation of external circumstances, but through his assumption, not through his effort, but through his rest in the certainty of consciousness. Within days, a series of seemingly coincidental events unfolded, events that would appear miraculous to ordinary consciousness, but which Neville recognized as the natural harvest of seeds planted in imagination. He found himself honorably discharged from the army and on a ship to Barbados. This is the power of assumption when it is uncontaminated by doubt, when it is not diluted by competing states, when it is maintained with patient persistence. It demonstrates that the path to fulfillment is often through an internal shift rather than an external struggle. The NOTT technique accelerates this entire process by removing the primary obstacle to pure assumption, the desperate, grasping energy of lack that characterizes ordinary desire. When you declare with genuine authority that you do not need the external thing, you are not denying your desire for expansion, for expression, for the fullness and richness of life. You are not embracing poverty, consciousness, or limitation. You are simply refusing to locate your completeness, your peace, your sense of being fulfilled in anything outside yourself. You are reclaiming your power from the external world where you had projected it and returning it to its rightful throne. The I am within you, the creative center, the consciousness that you are from, which all manifestations proceed as naturally as an apple tree produces apples. This powerful negation is a declaration of inner sovereignty, severing the energetic ties that bind your happiness to external conditions. And paradoxically, and this paradox is the very essence of the technique. The moment you genuinely release your grip, the moment you stop pushing against the river of consciousness with the oars of effort and anxiety, that which you released begins to move toward you with an ease and naturalness, with a grace and inevitability that all your previous striving could never accomplish. It comes not because you wanted it desperately, but because you assumed it naturally. It manifests not because you worked hard to deserve it, but because you recognized it as the natural expression of the state you chose to occupy. This effortless flow is the hallmark of true mastery, where alignment with your inner state naturally draws forth its external equivalent. This principle, this way of understanding manifestation is fundamentally, irreconcilably different from what has been popularized as the law of attraction, and we must be absolutely clear about this distinction, because confusion on this point leads to years of wasted effort, and mounting frustration. The law of attraction, as commonly taught, posits a transactional universe, a mechanical cosmos where like attracts like across some metaphysical distance, where you send out vibrations and the universe responds by sending back matching circumstances where you are here and your desires are somewhere out there, and the game is to close the gap through proper vibrational alignment, through thinking the right thoughts with sufficient emotional intensity. This model, while containing elements of truth, fundamentally misunderstands the nature of consciousness and its relationship to experience. It maintains the illusion of separation of you as subject and the world as object, of consciousness and its contents as two different things. It keeps you in a perpetual state of seeking, of trying to attract, of working to manifest, of striving to align. There is always a gap, always a distance, always more work to be done. You are constantly chasing a future outcome, trying to manipulate external conditions to match an internal desire, or attempting to earn your manifestation through positive thinking and emotional effort. This approach often leaves individuals feeling exhausted, disheartened, and questioning their own worthiness when their efforts don't yield the desired results. It fosters a sense of struggle, suggesting that manifestation is a difficult, arduous process that requires constant vigilance and external validation. The emphasis is often on what you lack and what you need to do to get it, rather than recognizing your inherent creative power. Neville's law of assumption operates from an entirely different paradigm, a radically different understanding of reality's structure. It reveals that there is no distance, no separation, no gap between your consciousness and your experience. There is no universe out there that needs to be convinced, aligned with, or attracted. There is only consciousness and its infinite capacity to assume states, and those states, when occupied with persistence and feeling, must by law, by the very nature of consciousness, embody themselves, externalize themselves, objectify themselves in your three-dimensional experience. This profound shift in perspective liberates you from the endless pursuit of external circumstances and places the power squarely within your own being. It asserts that reality is not something external to be reacted to, but rather an unfolding reflection of your internal state of consciousness. Your world is a mirror, not a source. The moment you truly embody a state, the outer world begins to conform to that inner reality, effortlessly and inevitably. When you assume a state of consciousness, you do not attract circumstances that match it across some metaphysical distance. You are those circumstances in their causal, subjective form. The external world is shadow. Consciousness is substance. The external world is effect. Consciousness is cause. The external world is the garment. Consciousness is the body it clothes. And the NOTT technique operates by dissolving the false identification with shadow, with effect, with the world of Caesar, so that you may stand firm, may establish yourself immovably in your true identity as the operant power, as consciousness itself, as God-men creating from within outward, rather than reacting to creation from without inward. This technique is not about suppression or denial. It is about redirecting your focus from the perceived problem to the already achieved solution. It's about recognizing that the not of your current undesirable reality is merely a temporary, fleeting shadow, while the is of your desired reality is the true and eternal substance. By consciously disengaging from the unwanted, you are not fighting it, but rather withdrawing your conscious energy from its perpetuation. This allows the assumed desired state to rise to the forefront of your awareness and solidify into your objective experience. This is not mere philosophy, not abstract metaphysics meant for intellectual contemplation. This is the most practical teaching ever offered to humanity, because it places the power where it actually resides, in consciousness, in imagination, in the I am that you are. When you grasp this, when you truly understand that your consciousness is not perceiving reality, but is actually constructing it moment by moment through the states it occupies, everything changes. The entire game changes. You are no longer a beggar petitioning an external power for favors. You are the king in your own kingdom, the creator in your own universe, the artist before an infinite canvas with every color at your disposal. This realization empowers you to shed the victim mentality, to cease blaming external forces or past events for your present circumstances. It instills a profound sense of responsibility, not as a burden, but as the ultimate freedom. You become the conscious architect of your destiny, capable of shaping your reality, not through strenuous effort, but through the calm, persistent assumption of your desired state. The NOTT technique becomes your master key, allowing you to gracefully release what does not serve you and embrace the boundless potential of your own consciousness. Now I must address the question that inevitably, understandably arises in the minds of sincere practitioners when they first encounter this teaching. Is this not simply spiritual bypassing? Is this not merely another sophisticated form of denial? A way of pretending we do not have authentic desires, of suppressing our genuine yearnings in service of some austere, life-denying philosophy? Is the NOTT technique asking us to become emotionless robots, to cut ourselves off from the full spectrum of human feeling, to achieve manifestation through a kind of spiritual anesthesia? Absolutely not. This objection arises from a fundamental misunderstanding of what the technique actually does. The NOTT technique does not ask you to deny what you authentically wish to experience in your life. It does not demand that you suppress desire or pretend you do uncare about outcomes or adopt a false stance of spiritual superiority. It asks you only to locate that wish correctly, not in some future manifestation that may or may not arrive, not in some external condition that could be taken away, not in some other person's behavior that you cannot control, but in the eternal now of consciousness, where all things already exist, where all states are perpetually available, where you are already everything you could ever wish to become. Neville taught with consistency throughout his entire ministry that imagination is God, that the human imagination is not merely a faculty for creating fantasy, but is the divine creative power itself, operating through human consciousness. When you imagine from the end when, you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You are not pretending, not engaging in make-believe, not indulging in escapist fantasy. You are selecting from the infinite array of possible states that exist in consciousness, the specific state you choose to occupy, to embody, to express in your three-dimensional experience. And consciousness, being all that is, being the only reality, must harden into fact, must crystallize into circumstance, must embody in form the state you persistently occupy with feeling and conviction. The technique also addresses a deeply practical problem that plagues most students of manifestation, a problem that leads many to abandon these teachings in exhaustion and disappointment, the weariness of constant visualization, of perpetual affirmation, of the relentless effort required to maintain a particular feeling tone in the face of contradictory circumstances. This effort itself, this strain, this constant vigilance, this need to pump yourself up emotionally again and again's a confession of doubt, a revelation that you do not truly believe what you are affirming. If you truly believed that your assumption was law, if you truly knew with unshakable certainty that consciousness is the only reality and all external circumstances are merely shadows cast by inner states, you would not need to strain to repeat mechanically, to convince yourself or anyone else. You would simply assume your desired state and persist in that assumption with the same casual confidence, the same effortless knowing you have that the sun will rise tomorrow morning. The NOTT technique, by releasing you from attachment, simultaneously releases you from this exhausting performance, this theatrical display of confidence masking underlying doubt. You are no longer trying to convince the universe of anything, no longer attempting to manipulate an external power through the right formula of thoughts and feelings. You are simply being what you are: consciousness, aware of being that which you have deliberately chosen to be. And this is effortless in the way that being yourself is effortless, in the way that breathing is effortless when you stop trying to control it and simply allow the natural rhythm to assert itself. Let me offer now a concrete, practical application of this technique, a specific method for integrating it into the framework of Neville's state, akin to sleep method, which he considered throughout his teaching career to be the most powerful of all manifestation techniques. The state akin to sleep, that drowsy hypnagogic state, that threshold consciousness between waking and sleeping, where the critical faculty of the conscious mind is relaxed and the subconscious mind is most impressionable, is the ideal condition for planting seeds in consciousness that will inevitably germinate and bear fruit in your external experience. Before you enter that drowsy state, as you lie in bed preparing for sleep, you engage deliberately in the NOTT statement. You say, with quiet but absolute authority, I do not need this condition to change for me to be at peace. I do not require this person to behave differently for me to feel loved. I do not demand that the world conform to my previous understanding for me to feel secure. I am already complete. I am already whole. I am already everything I have been seeking. And as you release each specific attachment, as you cut each energetic cord, you feel the burden lifting from your consciousness, the grasping and clinging dissolving, like morning mist in sunlight, leaving behind a spaciousness, an openness, a kind of psychological and emotional breathing room. Then, in that state of profound release, of spacious emptiness that is paradoxically full of infinite potential, you gently, naturally assume the feeling of being what you wish to be, not doing something different, not having something different, being someone different, being the person for whom the wish is already fulfilled. You assume the state. You feel it as though it were already accomplished. You rest in it as though it were your natural condition. And then you drift into sleep, into unconsciousness, allowing that assumption to sink below the threshold of the rational mind, to descend into the deep, fertile waters of subconsciousness, where all creation germinates, where all seeds planted with feeling must inevitably grow and produce a harvest after their own kind. This is the secret that mystics have whispered across centuries and civilizations, that the Hermetic philosophers encoded in their cryptic texts to protect from the uninitiated, that the Kabbalists embedded in their esoteric diagrams and incomprehensible symbols, that Christian mystics like Meister Eckhart and Jacob Boehme tried to communicate in language that would not get them burned at the stake, and that Neville Goddard decoded and offered in plain, accessible language to anyone willing to test these principles in the laboratory of their own consciousness. The secret is this, so simple that the sophisticated mind struggles to accept it. We are not seeking something outside ourselves. We are not petitioning a distant God sitting on a throne in some far-off heaven. We are not negotiating with an impersonal universe governed by mechanical laws. We are simply becoming aware of what we already are, of what has always been true, of the infinite possibilities that exist within consciousness itself as eternal potentials, waiting only for our recognition, an assumption to spring into manifest form. And the NOTT technique is a gateway to this awareness, a paradoxical path that leads through release to realization, through letting go to having, through the death of desire as lack to the resurrection of the wish fulfilled as present reality. It is the narrow gate that few find not because it is hidden, but because it contradicts everything we have been conditioned to believe about how life works, about what we must do to get what we want, about the relationship between effort and reward. This profound truth, often obscured by our relentless pursuit of external validation and material gain, reveals a different path entirely. We have been taught that more effort produces better results, that harder work yields greater rewards, that intense desire attracts its object. And in the realm of external action, in the world of physical cause and effect, this is often true. We see it in the accomplishments of athletes, the dedication of scientists, the relentless drive of entrepreneurs. Their success seems directly proportional to the energy they invest, reinforcing our deeply ingrained belief that effort is the master key to achievement. This conditioning leads us to believe that to manifest something, we must strive harder, want it more intensely, and relentlessly pursue it with all our might. But in the realm of consciousness, in the dimension of assumption, where all manifestation originates, these rules reverse themselves. In consciousness, effort creates resistance. When we strain and push, we implicitly acknowledge a lack, a distance between us and our desire. This very act of striving becomes an affirmation of absence, pushing our desired reality further away. Intense desire, far from attracting its object, confesses absence. It is a scream of "I don't have this," which consciousness, in its infinite wisdom, obligingly reflects back to us. Hard work at manifestation, paradoxically, reveals doubt. If we truly believed our wish was fulfilled, there would be no need for the arduous struggle, the desperate attempts to force it into existence. The way to have is to be. It's not about doing more, but about shifting our state of being to align with the reality we wish to experience. The way to receive is to assume you already possess. This isn't a mental trick, but a profound reorientation of your inner world, a radical acceptance of your inherent power. The way to manifest is to release attachment to manifestation and rest in the state of the wish fulfilled as present fact. It is a surrender to the certainty of what already is in the infinite realm of consciousness. As we come to the conclusion of this exploration, I want to leave you not merely with information, not simply with theory to contemplate intellectually, but with a practical challenge, an experiment you can conduct immediately in the laboratory of your own consciousness. This isn't about passive listening, it's about active participation and direct experience. Choose one thing you have been desperately wanting, one condition you have been intensely focused on manifesting, one situation that has dominated your thoughts and colored your emotions for weeks, months, perhaps years. It might be financial abundance, romantic partnership, physical healing, career success, creative breakthrough, reconciliation with an estranged person. Choose whatever has the strongest emotional charge for you. Whatever you have convinced yourself you cannot be happy without, this is the perfect subject for your experiment, precisely because of its emotional weight. For the next 7 days, engage the NOTT technique with consistency and sincerity. This requires a commitment, not just of time, but of presence and intention. Declare each morning upon waking and each evening before sleep that you do not need this thing to feel complete, whole, fulfilled. Say it aloud or silently, but say it with authority, with the certainty of consciousness claiming its sovereignty. This isn't a denial of desire. It's a reassertion of your inherent wholeness, independent of any external condition. Feel the release as you speak these words. Notice what happens in your emotional body, in your thought patterns, in your physical sensations, in your sense of self. Observe without judgment, but with scientific curiosity, how the energy shifts when you stop grasping and start releasing. This simple yet profound practice will open you to the truth of your own creative power, revealing that what you seek is already within you. And then, from that place of release, from that spaciousness created by letting go, assume the state you believed the external thing would give you. If it is money you have been wanting, assume the feeling of absolute financial security without any reference to your bank balance. If it is a relationship you have been craving, assume the feeling of being deeply loved without thinking of any specific person. If it is health you have been pursuing, assume the feeling of perfect physical well-being without checking for symptoms. Assume the state as though it were your natural condition, your birthright, your eternal truth that nothing in the three-dimensional world can negate or contradict. This is the essence of the NOTT technique, a paradoxical pathway to manifestation championed by Neville Goddard. It is a method that turns conventional striving on its head, inviting us to find the desired state within before any external proof appears, and watch with the detachment of a scientist observing an experiment. With the curiosity of an explorer discovering new territory, what begins to shift in your inner world, and consequently, inevitably, in the shadow play we call external reality. Do not look for immediate external changes. Do not check anxiously for signs and symptoms of manifestation. The temptation to constantly scan your environment for evidence of your assumption is a primary pitfall that many encounter. Instead, notice how your inner world transforms, how your peace deepens, how your confidence grows, how you begin to move through your days with a different quality of energy, a different relationship to circumstances, a different sense of who you are and what is possible. This internal transformation is the true sign that the NOTT technique is working, signaling a fundamental realignment of your being with your desires. It is a cultivation of an inner knowing, an unwavering conviction that your assumed state is already your reality, regardless of present appearances. This profound inner shift is the precursor to all external manifestation, demonstrating that the outer world is merely a reflection of the inner. For in the end, and this is the ultimate promise of Neville's teaching, the final revelation toward which all his lectures pointed, you are not the puppet of circumstances, tossed about by forces beyond your control. You are not the victim of chance or fate or divine caprice. You are not the beggar petitioning an indifferent universe for scraps from reality's table. This perspective shatters the illusion of powerlessness that often grips humanity, replacing it with a radical understanding of self-sovereignty. You are consciousness itself, the creative power, the I am that fashions worlds, the imagination that is God. And when you fully assume this identity, when you release your grip on the shadows and stand firm in your identity as the light that casts them, you discover that manifestation is not something you do through technique or effort. It is what you are by nature. This profound truth liberates you from the endless cycle of seeking and striving, revealing an inherent capacity that requires only recognition and acceptance. It signifies a shift from trying to manifest to simply being the manifestation. The NOTT technique is simply one path, one paradoxical gateway among many to this eternal truth that sages have proclaimed across all ages and all traditions. That in releasing all attachment, you possess all things. That in wanting nothing, you become everything. That in dying to your false identity as a separate, self-seeking completion from external sources, you are resurrected into your true nature as consciousness itself, complete, whole, infinite, and eternally free. This method, far from being a mere psychological trick, invites a profound spiritual awakening. This is not philosophy. This is not poetry. This is the actual structure of reality, waiting only for your recognition and embodiment to prove itself in your experience with mathematical precision and unfailing consistency. It is an invitation to step into your true power, to shed the limitations of conditioned belief, and to experience the boundless creative force that you inherently